I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war.
First of all, very interesting. So Charlie Kirk, again, this clip is from October, I believe, 12th, 2023. So it's a few days after October 7th happened. And as you can see, Charlie Kirk was actually very skeptical of how it took place. As a matter of fact, he was skeptical of Israel. Like, how did they let this happen? What was the reason for letting this happen? And I say that this is very interesting because his tone definitely changed. And now I know that technically he doesn't take money from AIPAC. I believe Turning Point doesn't take money from AIPAC. That's what he said in the past. But that doesn't mean that he has a lot of big Zionists supporting him. In fact, what many people don't know is how AIPAC actually donates. A lot of times they don't donate money directly to candidates and stuff. They actually mobilize supporters. So AIPAC has supporters in all 50 states, right? And so when they want to support someone, they mobilize that state, that town, whatever in particular, and say, hey, support this candidate. So it could be very well that he was supported by a lot of people from AIPAC and not funded directly by him. But it is very interesting that he had a certain view of October 7th when it happened. And 2 years later, the whole view definitely changed.
It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here. But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order?
Wow, was there a stand down order? So a few things I want to correct now for the record. In retrospect, Netanyahu definitely knew. Mossad, I mean, their intelligence, IDF, they definitely knew that this was going to happen. I believe they received reports on it twice, but they took no action. Now, another reason why I wanted to share this clip is not only about Charlie Kirk's views, because a lot of people are looking at these old clips and seeing how Charlie's views changed on Israel throughout the 2 years, but also PBD's views on this. I think it's very interesting, and I think many of you will find it very interesting as well. Someone in the comments wrote, is there a recent clip of how his views had changed? So over here, he's definitely critical of Israel, saying that, hey, why do we not know what actually happened? Like, how it's a small state of New Jersey. How were people able to cross and then go back? And why did it take them 6 hours? You don't see that type of criticism anymore. And there's a lot of other things he says here that are also very, a lot more critical compared to how critical he became later on. More recently, though, I will say like the last maybe 1 or 2 weeks, I did notice that he was going a bit back and forth, not publicly. You hear these things like behind closed doors, oh, Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly, they're having second thoughts on Israel. It's like the one thing that's really confusing because obviously someone like Charlie Kirk, he's very well connected with the White House, but he also has a very young following in college campuses. And so there's like a dichotomy because on the White House, they're very pro-Israel, whereas the college campuses more and more are becoming anti-Israel. And so he had a bit of a tough time, reconciling both of these.
Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF.
Another thing I want to point out here. So he said that the whole country is the size of New Jersey. Was there a stand down order? He's implying, did they do it on purpose so that they could take over the Gaza Strip? Or did they do it on purpose because Benjamin Netanyahu was going through all this political turmoil? And did he do this so all of that turmoil is gone? Now, I want to think about something as well. So a country that lets an attack happen on its own soil and has 1,000 of its own civilians unalived, right, on purpose. so that they can control the country politically. Do you think a country like that might, uh, or someone like that might get rid of Charlie Kirk just so a lot of attention is taken off of Gaza and Israel? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Could be. Could be.
The whole country is.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long
Thank
wait
you.
for help as
Look at
massacre
this.
unfolds in Israel.
9
I can't think of a
hours.
more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be very, so I'm not exactly.
Well, I think we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here. But so Patrick, there are other explanations. It's possible that the Netanyahu government was double-crossed by bad agents. Okay? That's dark, but it's not as dark as what we're talking about. Okay? Another aspect is that Netanyahu might have traitors in his government, like legitimate traitors that have infiltrated. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, I can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America, we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. Just something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, maybe they might have gotten a tip. They might have gotten whispers, but no one thought it would be 1,200 Jews dead. That's a potential, right? Because here's the essence of it. The essence is this. This is the closest thing to the Holocaust that any of us have lived through.
I really don't like that comparison. First of all, he said, maybe they got a tip or 2 tips and they just didn't do anything about it. They didn't think 1,200 Jews would be dead. Okay, fine. They definitely did get a warning. I think this was proven later on. However, to compare it to the Holocaust, man, are you serious? I mean, Holocaust, 6 million people died. This is, when you compare something where 6 million people were starved to death and killed and unalived and all these different things, and it was brutal and it became part of history, you're really going to compare that to, a few guys cross the border and they unalived 1,000 people, which isn't good at all. But don't compare that to the catastrophe of the Holocaust. I think that's not doing the Holocaust justice, in my personal opinion. But
the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
So a few things I want to mention right here. So first, he said that, it just seems that it's very hard to believe that it just happened and they didn't catch it, because he thinks, he called it before. Honestly, so Muslims, Arabs, everyone in the area, all the Palestinians, they knew that Israel was just looking for an excuse to take over Gaza and the West Bank. People have known about this for decades. I mean, everyone in the area knows about it. The world is finally waking up, but everyone else has known about this forever. And he caught it. He hit the nail on the head when he said that, hey, are they doing this so they can finally ethnically cleanse the Palestinians? And he said this later on. Oh my God, he said the G word, or he said ethnic cleansing. Like, how dare you? Israel would never do that. They all know this was going to happen. They all just try to avoid they just don't want to get hurt by AIPAC. Another thing many people don't know about AIPAC, actually, I found this out recently. So AIPAC has a scorecard for everyone. Generally politicians, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's for people like Charlie Kirk here as well, where they see how you're voting on Israeli issues. And then based on that, you get a scorecard. And let's say there's a bill that comes out that's very pro-Israel, let's get the words Zionism included in anti-Semitic. And whoever goes against that, we're going to include that in their scorecard. People, there's a reason why people don't vote against the bill, because one mark against Israel and your scorecard is horrible, and then it's on your record forever. And so that's why people are actually very careful. So like the fact that he was so early on it saying ethnically cleansing the Palestinians, and now you see a lot of people trying to avoid that and the word genocide and all of that. It's for that reason. It's because they don't want a bad grade on their little scorecard.
Yeah, this one's very weird.
Can I comment on the, when you use the term ethnic cleansing, that will, make the hairs on the back
I'm not
of your head.
accusing them.
Oh, Adam, our fellow dummy on the PBD podcast. I don't know why he still has a job there. No one on the podcast likes him. But yet, oh my God, don't say the word ethnic cleansing. He came out exactly like we thought he would and says, no, don't use the word ethnically cleansing. Now, 2 years later, they've definitely just done that. Gaza is pretty much destroyed. 70 to 80% of Gaza is destroyed. People are getting pushed more and more to the south, losing their homes. And yeah, I mean, if this is not ethnically cleansing, then what the hell is it? It's definitely ethnically cleansing. Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that term. I actually did some research specifically on that because
That's the only research Adam did, and he did that research driving on the way to the podcast. Adam is probably the most intellectually lazy person on any platform that I've seen. This guy does not do any studying. He just reads headlines and he just tries to BS his way on the podcast. And I think he really insults our intelligence because he thinks we can't tell that he's just BSing live. Like, we all see it.
that is a very slippery slope. And if you actually want to talk about what Jews and even Christians should be most fearful of, Muslims as well, is the concept of ethnic cleansing.
So I just want to be very sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I'm saying that's what they're going to be accused of.
Correct.
But if there are some people in public life in Israel that, Patrick, what did your pilot guy say? I want only Jews in Israel, right? Okay, that is a form of ethnically cleansing because 20% of Israel is Arab. Muslim.
Correct.
20%.
And
So Charlie Kirk was calling this out on Israel very early on. Then what changed? Why did his tone change on Israel? It's very curious. And also, someone in the comments mentioned the Epstein files, and that's true. If you notice what Charlie Kirk says is that he got it right on COVID and a few other things, and he mentions the Epstein files. And I find it very disheartening that when Trump came out and his spokesperson said that, oh yeah, we released all the Epstein files and that there's none left. That's all it is. There you go. And we're done with this case. Charlie just came out and said, yeah, Epstein files, if that's what our administration says, then I believe it. Even though he was the biggest advocate for the Epstein files and he wanted everything. So he just switched up. I mean, and also it almost, he was someone that was always critical of the United States government, like when Biden was in charge. I think in this clip, Biden was still in charge. Yeah, he definitely was. And then he was also it seems like he was somewhat critical of Israel in here. And then as soon as Trump took office, all of that criticism went away. He wasn't as hard as he was before.
My plead to Israel is be precise, be focused in your retaliation. You have a moral right to go and seek the blood of the people that did this. What I think would be bad for Israel, and I have a heart for Israel. I can't tell you what it did. It made me a stronger Christian in a way I can't even tell you, right? Be able to see where our Lord rose from the dead. My heart for Israel is that they don't overreact. And Patrick, you hear what I'm saying here, right?
Fully, that's my concern because
Patrick's been real quiet in this video. So something Charlie said again, the reason I put this clip here is that he had this request because, again, see, everyone acts all surprised now, 2 years later, but everyone knew that Israel was going to do this. And so, it's kind of disheartening because it feels like everyone knows what's going on and they're just turning a blind eye to it because they don't want to get on Israel's bad side. Like, how ridiculous is that? Just Charlie, a few days after October 7th, saying that, Israel probably knew about this. They're probably doing this just so they can take over Gaza. And yeah, like, I just hope they don't retaliate too strongly. And that's exactly what Israel did. Exactly what Israel did. And, that means they had an idea that it could happen. And so at this point, they all know what Israel was going to do. And Israel did end up doing it. No, everyone's just too scared to speak up. That's the truth. Now, I also want to show you what Patrick Bet David says. Because, again, I think this is very interesting because I think his tone changed a lot on Israel as well.
if they do, again, if they do overreact, I'm more coming from a place of thinking this was intentional. If they don't overreact, then this wasn't intentional. Meaning, if all of a sudden you see an all-out annihilation,
What do you mean by intentional? That they knew it was going to happen?
that no? When you're asking about the stand down 6 hours and 3 hours, then why did you? What
No,
intel
of
are you
course.
getting? So we're on the same page.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
No,
All I'm
I
saying
just
is,
wanted to make sure I understood.
if there is a major attack, it was intentional. If there's a major attack, and by the way,
So did all of you hear that? Like, no one's talking about Patrick Bet David. This is, again, the timing of this clip is 2 years ago. I think that's important. It's 5 days after October 7th happened. I believe this clip is from October 12th. And Patrick Bet David literally says, after this attack, let's see what Israel does. If Israel goes all out, then he believes that this attack, like allowing Hamas to attack Israel, was totally intentional, because they have all the data. They hear about everything. Israel's tiny. They have IDF all over the country. Like, come on, man. There's no way they did not know. And it took them 6 hours to help them get out. So like, if Israel goes all out, this was all intentional. And if Israel, has some patience and tries to just, get away from this whole conflict, then, it was not unintentional. Obviously, Israel went out on an all-out attack. They destroyed 70 to 80% of Gaza, most likely killed like over 100,000 people. So Patrick Bet David, I have a question for you. At this point, are you willing to say that October 7th was intentional? Just a question. Question for Patrick Bet David.
the number in the last however many years, the biggest number they have is 2,000, right? The Palestinians that died. That's the biggest number they've had. And in Gaza, if you look at the Gaza Strip if you can pull up the map so you can kind of show Gaza, West Bank, and where Hezbollah's coming from, Lebanon. Yeah, but in West Bank, it's a different story, because in West Bank, at least 42% of Palestinians there support Hamas, but in Gaza it's 58%.
And
so
Hamas really isn't in those regions.
Yeah, it really is not in those regions. So this is Gaza Strip, all the way to the left.
Can I emphasize though?
Sure, go for it.
Look at the cameras, the radars. Patrick, not only did they go in,
That's what I'm saying.
No, but hear me out here. Not only did they go into Israel, they got out of Israel with hostages.
Yeah, 100 hostages.
So you would think, let me just hear me out. There's a penetration of your border wall, okay? That you guard on a holy day, the 50-year anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. And you would think, hey, they're going to come back. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Let's mobilize some forces. And Lindsey Graham is an irresponsible lawmaker.
Okay, this part was very interesting. Again, another part of Charlie Kirk that switched up so much, unfortunately, but I want all of you to watch his reaction to Israel in general on October 12th, 2023. See what he says about Iran here.
For what he's saying. Bombing Iranian oil depots? This thing could get wildly out of control.
So right now, Charlie Kirk is criticizing Lindsey Graham for saying that, we should go ahead and bomb Iran oil reserves, basically.
Very, very quickly. The last thing America needs is a kinetic war against Iran, an 87 million person country that has a pretty fierce fighting spirit, a country that's 5 times the size of Iraq. 5 times the size of Iraq. We're going to go start bombing oil depots? Yeah, that could get Russia further involved, China involved. Yeah, look, the quote-unquote Armageddon situation is that, for Israel, the Armageddon situation is that they overreact so much that they lose their Arab neutrality.
And see, Charlie was actually kind of right here. Like, that would be the worst thing for the United States to get into, is to get into a fight with Iran and start bombing them. Unfortunately, we ended up doing that. I wonder what Charlie Kirk's reaction was when Trump did that. I don't think he was that critical of it when it happened, unfortunately. See, these are the kind of things, this is why you can't be too loyal to one party. Both party has their politics, and you got to be true to yourself. So Charlie had it right somewhat early on. And then as the time went on, when it was Biden's presidential time, Charlie Kirk was a lot more critical, and he read the situation a lot better than he did during Trump's administration, because he was blindsided by politics. That's all that really happened. And so over here, he's saying, like, the worst case scenario is we get into a war with Iran, and all of the Arab allies pretty much go against Israel. Well, what are we seeing now? Israel just, they attacked Qatar, Qatar, which Doha is pretty much all Qatar got. And when they attacked Qatar, Qatar said, if this keeps up, we're just going to get out of the Abraham Accords, man. We can't deal with this stuff. And that's what all the other countries are saying. It's like, If you're really not going to give Palestinians a state at all, then why are we even in the Abraham Accords?
Right now, they have neutrality with Egypt. If they overreact, they could lose that. They have warm conversations. I won't say a peace deal yet with Saudi Arabia. They could lose that. Jordan plays ball because America demands they play ball. They could lose that. Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he acts as if it doesn't exist, but that could change in a moment's notice, right? Lebanon via Hezbollah is already there. They could be all of a sudden dealing with a 15-country invasion of Israel.
Can they handle that?
They have in the past. I mean, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War, for example, they were invaded from every direction.
And again, this was October 12th. And he said, they could be dealing with like 12 countries all of a sudden. What actually ended up happening 2 years later? Israel attacked literally, weren't they fighting like 6, 7? Weren't they bombing 6, 7 countries at the same time? And again, it's not like all these other countries got mad and they started attacking Israel and they became their enemies. No. Israel was provoking all of these attacks with everyone else. Pretty insane, man. He read the situation pretty darn well.
At the Balfour Declaration, when they became a country in 1948, every Arab country declared war on them, and they almost lost the country. And to their credit, they held it off and they earned the right to be Israel. We, the American government, are the reason why Iran is radical.
Again, this was another moment where I was like, whoa, okay, this side of Charlie Kirk, man, I didn't see this, and I'm not sure when he changed so much, but he definitely became way less critical of these types of things later on, in my opinion. So over here, he straight up says that, listen, we are the reason Iran is the way that they are.
We did this. They had a democratically elected leader that we did not like. I believe his name was Mossadegh.
Mossad.
Yeah, right?
Mossadegh.
Yeah, Mossadegh, thank you. And we didn't like him because he wanted to nationalize the oil. Specifically, the Brits didn't like it.
50s. This is
What year was
1950s.
this, PBD? Okay, gotcha. This is before the show.
Yes, he
years ago.
was very popular.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And look right there. Even in Wikipedia, 1953 Iranian coup d'etat aided by intelligence agencies of the UK and United States.
Weird. Got it.
Okay? So then we put the Shah back in, if my memory serves me correctly, who was sick and unpopular, meaning he was actually suffering. Physically sick.
Yeah.
And we paved the way for the most radical elements of Islam from a country that, Patrick, you know it better than I do. The Persian people are the most entrepreneurial. They're some of the smartest people that have really been living under radical Islamic captivity for many decades. Why am I bringing this up? Sometimes your intervention can make things far, far worse. Sometimes intervention is moral and necessary. Our intervention in World War II in Europe was moral and necessary. So what to do? Well, I think Joe Biden should definitely not give them $6 billion. I think that's a good start. I think that sanctions is probably appropriate. But I also think that we have to be really clear that Iran is an enemy of the United States, but it pales in comparison to the immediate and the pernicious and the existential threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses to America. And I don't want to see us get into the Lindsey Graham dream world that Iran is somehow murdering Americans. They are.
Okay, so that's the end of the clip, but I will say that, man, Charlie Kirk, did you hear that last statement? He had it right. He said he just wants to remind everyone that Iran is not the real enemy of the United States right now. They're not an immediate threat. I wish he had been that strong of a spokesperson about these ideas when Trump became president. If you enjoyed that video, YouTube says you'll love this video right here. And also go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel right here. It only takes 1 second to do. Only about 5 or 6% of you are subscribed to my channel. Go ahead and press it. It's free. It takes a second. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.